if you want to clear your mind, I think really meditation and just overall healthy living is the way to do it. Because the mind is a very delicate thing. In the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the main spiritual texts, it says the mind can become one's best friend or one's worst enemy. And if you hope to achieve transcendence or that union with God, you really need the help of your mind. You need to make the mind your best friend. And our mind is already giving us so many problems. It worries about things that we really don't need to worry about. It magnifies things that are really, really insignificant. Our mind is already kind of our worst enemy. And if you put stuff in there that's going to agitate it more, then I think it's just going to distance us from that goal. So yeah, any kind of intoxication, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, it's not recommended if you're seriously trying to make spiritual advancement. If you want to progress, do it of your own accord. Do it with a sane and calm mind. That's the only way to really do it in a steady and healthy way.
Vanya, did psychedelics help you get interested in Buddhism?
Well, it started me on the whole journey. I would not be sitting here without it. And it's interesting, he would quote the Bhagavad Gita as our spiritual heritage. Over 120 times they mentioned the Soma. Only in the oldest part of the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, the Soma. But when they wanted to talk to the gods, they had to go and drink the Soma again. These are our roots,
Yeah, I'll just, I have a quote about Soma, actually, because the ancient Hindu text Rig Veda mentions Soma.
The Rig Vedas is over 120 times they mentioned the Soma.
I wonder if you can unpack this question of cloudedness and addiction, because I think we're probably conflating a few things here, right? There is the cloudedness that comes from certain drugs, particularly alcohol. There is addiction, which Pandit says is a problem. And then there is what you're talking about, which I suppose is the spiritual pathway or the sense of the divine, the sense of the transcendent that can come with certain hallucinogens.
That obviously many people, a whole generation, claim that they have this experience in connection with these substances. And who is going to come and tell them your experience doesn't count or is not, that's, to many people, and I personally am a good example for it. It was the opening. I had a very protected life and everything was stable and clear. And I had some experiences with LSD as a young man, and it blew completely my mind. And it changed my life. Ultimately, I became a Zen Buddhist monk, and I practiced meditation very seriously and intensively for 25 or 30 years without drinking or taking anything beyond a cup of green tea, maybe. And and then I came back and looked at it again because these experiences were so important to me that I thought, now as a mature person, I have to go back and look at it again.
Vanya, the experiences that you were having during the decades when you didn't touch any alcohol or any drugs and you only had green tea, as you say, were those meditative experiences analogous to the experiences that you'd had on psychedelics? How did they differ?
They were different. I could not say that they were the same, And, I often wondered how natural it is if we sit for days and weeks, which we did, we sit motionless for long hours, for days on end. How natural is that? If you want to go natural, only natural counts.
Mm. Pandit, I feel like there's a rise in interest in Eastern faiths, certainly in the past half century, in the West, with people becoming more interested, not just in what grew out of the hippie movement in the 60s, but now the science that we understand in terms of the boom in mindfulness and meditative practices. Does that hearten you? What do you make of that?
Yeah, definitely. No question about it. Unthinkable without the substance. Without the a whole generation, millions of people had first-hand mystical experiences. And that's what ultimately counts, our first-hand mystical experience. And rightly so, what we do with it is, that's very challenging. That's the right next question. Do we stick with it? But, people get stuck with their mystical experience also if they have them spontaneously. They get puffed up and they do, that no guarantee for a spiritual life, no matter how you get to that experience. So the challenge in any case is to translate that into a lifelong transformation. And for many of us, it did that. We became, monks and whatnot, or artists or musicians, and or a lot of the of the ecological movements and the peace movements were inspired by people who had their first oneness experience, their peak experience, their mystical experience under the substance, under the influence.